welcome to the Pearls and Polish podcast, episode 54. I'm your host, Rachel, coming to you from just outside Sacramento, California, along with the chaotic co-host Sabine, my 8-month-old schnoodle puppy. She's laying right here to the side of me, so hopefully she just kind of curls up and takes a nap. It's been a very long morning for her, so hopefully she's a bit tired. If you are new, welcome. I'm so excited to spend a bit of time with you. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. This is my little corner of the internet where I talk about knitting, crochet, other making things I do, what I'm reading and watching. So thanks for joining me for episode 54. All right, so we didn't have an episode last week. A good friend of mine, her husband is out of town. Or was out of town, and she had 2 kids who were recovering from getting their tonsils removed, and she ended up getting really sick and needed to go to the hospital. So a bunch of us stepped in to kind of take care of kids while she was getting some medical help. So I just couldn't record an episode. Thankfully, everyone's okay. Her husband has come back. Everyone's recovering well, but sometimes life takes over and we just got to roll with it. So thank you so much for your patience in not having an episode last week, but that does mean we have a lot to talk about for this week. So let's go ahead and get started with finished objects. I have quite a few. Let's start with the end of summer sock camp. So summer sock camp was a knit along hosted by the crazy sock lady, Kay, or I guess she goes by Kayla now. That's her actual name, Kayla. But she has a channel here on YouTube. She's very present on Instagram. So it's a sock knit along that goes throughout the summer. So that ended on August 31st, and I finished all the socks I had plans to make. So these are, I think I grabbed the right ones. This is the Aurora Borealis colorway. And if you are new or newer, my goal for summer sock camp was to knit up 14 colorways that I had from Pasley Knits Seasons boxes from last year. There are actually 16 colorways. 2 I had already knit up the previous year for summer sock camp. So I had 14 left, and my goal was to knit up all 14 during summer sock camp. And I did. So these are the last of the 3, right? No, the last 2 winter colors. So this one is Aurora Borealis. And then I have Svalbard. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And those were the last 2 of winter. For all of those socks that I did with that collection, I did Summer Lee's Shorty sock set pattern. It's a great pattern. It's actually like 6 different variations of a shorty sock. So you're really getting a lot for your money. It's a pattern I've done quite often, really great, really well written, and it's easy enough where you can memorize it. So I did it quite a bit this summer. So really happy how those turned out, and getting to have some shorty socks as the weather starts to turn a little cooler. Unfortunately, it is not turning cooler right now. Like I said, I'm in the Sacramento area of California. It's still in the high 90s. It's so hot. And I love warm weather, and I don't really care for the cold, but it's September. It's time to start cooling down. It's just so hot. The other pair of socks that I wanted to finish, let me back up a little bit. This is Prism by Hello Stella. I know I've talked about this quite a bit. This is on her merino base, and this was a colorway she would do once a year. And I love how neon and bright that is. I know I've talked about this often. This is not necessarily a color I would wear like next to my face. I don't think it would work well with my coloring. However, I love all the colors in my socks. The more bright and loud, the better. So I really love how these turned out. So the pattern I used is String of Lights by Sock Witchery, and she's on Instagram, here on YouTube, and on Ravelry. And it's just a really great broken rib pattern. I wanted something that was going to really show off the yarn, but gave me a little bit of a rib sock, and I think that just worked out beautifully. So make sure you check out that pattern on Ravelry. I don't know if she sells it anywhere else or if it's just on Ravelry. So anyways, those were the last of my summer sock camp socks. So I did finish a couple days early, and I had just some downtime between one knit along ending and the next one starting. And I'll talk about the next one in a minute. So I didn't want to start a big project, but I also didn't want to just like sit around and not work on anything at all. So I pulled out a couple of my sock tubes. And if you've never worked with a sock tube before, a lot of times you can send your yarn to someone who has a circular sock machine, or a CSM. And it's like a cylinder, and it's got a gear on it, and you have a handle, and you crank it, and it cranks a tube that is appropriate for socks. They have some like toy ones, or some that are marketed as toys for like hats. And those work fine, but not something I would use for socks. So anyways, throughout the last 5 years or so, I have been sending some of my yarn to people who own one of these machines, and they provide a cranking service. And what they do is they crank out all your yarn into a tube, and they send it back to you, and then you go back in and you put in your heels, toes, and cuffs. So I grabbed 2 yarns that have been in there for quite a while. This is yarn that I actually dyed myself a couple years ago, probably during COVID, or right after COVID. And it's just been sitting in my stash for a bit. So I went in and I put in my cuff, I put in an afterthought heel, and then the toe. And so this one, I call this one the rainbow socks because they look very rainbow. And I did these ones as well. And I call these ones blue and gold because there's a lot of blue and the gold is pretty bright. At one point I thought maybe I would teach myself how to dye yarn. And so I got some pans, and I got some bare yarn and some little samples of acid dye and tried some. I really liked the idea of self-striping, but I need more work on it. So I don't know if that's in my future or not, but it was pretty fun. So anyways, these are done. They do need to get washed and blocked, but I went in and put in heels, toes, and cuffs, and those are all completed. So I have 2 new pairs of socks. I am going to be writing a pattern for how I put in my heel, toes, and cuff for tube socks, and I'm going to be recording a how-to video. So make sure you keep your eye out on both Instagram and here on YouTube to see when those come out. I'm gonna have a little more access to space in the house in the upcoming week, so I'm hoping to record things then and then be able to write up a pattern and get that available to you. So keep an eye out for that. So like I said, I have some downtime between knit alongs. So one of the projects that kind of got left behind was my Row 1 subscription project. Row 1 is a subscription where you get 10 gram minis from a new dyer every month. And it has been a lot of fun getting just a surprise mix of colors, and most of the dyers I'm not familiar with. So it's nice to be able to meet new dyers and their work and try and figure out where they came up with the colorway names. So I've been really enjoying it. So the project I've been doing is making these little hexagrams out of, well, I'm crocheting them. So you have your 10 gram mini. Let me pull one out of this bag. So you get your 10 gram mini, and they all come labeled. So let me get that a little closer. So it comes labeled with the yarn dyer's name and the name of the colorway. You also get a list of it. So if you want to go back and decide, I really love this color, so I'm going to go to Storyteller Stitchery's website and order Love Good into full skein so I can do another project with it, you can do that. So I take the little band off, and these are already wound as like a center pull ball. So I grab one end from the middle, one end from the outside, and I knit these, well, I don't knit these, I crochet these DK, so I held them double. I will link the name of the pattern. Oh, I didn't mention that. Everyone I mentioned today, all the shops, the dyers, the designers, they're all going to be linked down below, along with the designer of this pattern of this hexagram. She does have these available as a free pattern on her website, but it has a lot of ads. So if you'd rather not shuffle through all the ads, you can pay to have the pattern through Ravelry. I don't know if it's available on her website as well. But anyways, I've been making a ton of these and I've been really enjoying it. And I've also started making them with just yarn that I have left over from other projects throughout the year. So my plan is, at the end of the year, having all these little hexagrams and then crocheting a blanket with them. So there's that. However, when I finish my little hexagram, I still have some yarn left over. And I didn't want to just like throw it in stash and just have it sit around until I decide what to do with it. So I started a blanket. And this is also crochet, and I believe it's called the Ripple Throw. It's going to be linked down below. But I've been still holding these double, and I've been just crocheting this ripple blanket. So every time I'm done with making up all my hexagons, I put all the leftover bits in here. My daughter was playing with these yesterday at Taekwondo, so it's a little messy. And then I just start crocheting, and when I get to the end of whatever the yarn is that I'm using, I find something that doesn't match. I don't want colors matching next to each other. I really want like chaotic colors. And then I do a magic knot, and then I keep going. So that has been fun too. The only problem with this is I have noticed when I crochet, I hold my hook. Let me grab it out of here. I hold my hook like this, like a pencil. And I end up doing a lot of wrist motion, and I have noticed I'm starting to get pain in my wrist. I know some crocheters hold their hook like this in a fist. Let me cover my face. They hold it like this in a fist, and I don't know if that gives them less movement or not. I have adjusted my knitting so that I have less movement in my hands so I can knit for longer and not do any damage to my wrists. But I have noticed I need to pace myself a little more with my crochet or I am going to hurt myself. And no one wants to be on a break from crafting because you overdid it. Been there, done that. It's not fun. So if you crochet, how do you hold your hook? Do you hold it like a pencil like I do? Or do you hold it like in your fist? Do you notice that you have a lot of wrist movement? Do you notice that if you have pain in your wrist? I would love to hear if this is something that you either do or experience, and if you have any tips on that. So I know I mentioned that I have another knit along that is coming up in just a little bit. I'm going to do the Woolberry Marled Knit Along, or Craft Along. I don't remember the official title for it, but it'll be down below. But the idea is you hold a Woolberry colorway and you hold it double with something else, either another Woolberry colorway or just another yarn in your stash, and then you make something. So I love holding yarns double and getting a marled look. So I'm going to do the High Desert Socks by Lindsay Fowler. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know that the High Desert Socks are my one and only go-to for DK socks. I have knit so many of those socks and I love them. And the yarn I wanted to use was the yarn that was sent with the road trip game that they did earlier in the summer. So I have the 4 colorways. These are 50-gram skeins, and they're gonna look really messy because I unwound them all when my daughters and I were playing the road trip game. But this one is called Amsterdam. This one is London. This one is Paris. And this one is Rome. So I did want to hold these all 4 together. I don't know if they necessarily like all match. Hold on, let me move it this way. But I did want to hold them together just because that's the way they came. They all came together. I was originally planning on holding them with a light gray. However, I'm not gonna have enough for these socks. So I went digging through my stash and I found this. This is Sourdough by Craft Me Not, and it's a very neutral, like a creamy brown. I wouldn't even say it's brown, it's just a very neutral cream. Some variegation, but not a ton. I don't see any speckles. So I figured that might be a good colorway to hold double with all of these, since they do tend to have a bit of that cream in the base. That one especially. This one had it. I would say this one probably does. Like, that seems to go well. And then this one maybe not as much, but I don't think they're fighting each other. So my plan is I'm going to use this as kind of the main color that's going to be throughout the whole sock. And then I'm going to rotate through these 4 and do like 10 rounds. I'm going to start with 10 and then see if I need to add or take out. But do 10 rounds for each color and just knit up some really cozy socks. I'll definitely have leftovers because these are 50 gram scants. So total, this is 200 grams. Here is another 100 grams. You don't need 300 grams for this particular pattern. The pattern is written so that you have 1 100 gram skein and then 2 contrasting colors. And you hold the main skein double, and then you do put in the contrasting colors in the cuff. There's a little stripe on the leg, the heel, and the toe. The Sourdough is 400 yards, and it's an 80/20 steep-wash merino nylon. This is a different yarn dyer than these. These are also 80/20, and these are 200 yards. So for 100 gram skein, it would be 400 yards. So these are all kind of equal to each other. So I should be just fine as far as having enough. Of course, I will be weighing this before I start, so I have an exact number, and then I'm going to weigh it when I get halfway through to make sure that I have enough for the second sock. So those are my plans. That starts up, I believe, this Sunday. So I'll probably wait till Monday to actually get started on that. So the project that I'm going to pick up next is one I started in June 2022. I started this so long ago. I decided that year I was going to knit like 8 to 9 sweaters, which is a big ask for me. In this time of life, with my kids being on the younger side, I'm still doing a lot of chauffeuring to and from school, to and from after school events. I also work part-time, so my knitting time can be very limited. And so trying to knit, 8 garments in a year is a big ask. And so I got most of it done, and then I quit and I put it away, and it's been sitting in a bag for 2 years. So this is the Zweig sweater by Caitlin Hunter. And now that I've pulled it out and I've looked at it, I still love the colors. I still love the way that it looks. I just need to get it done. So my plan is I'm going to try it on again and see how it fits. And then I'm going to see, okay, what do I actually need to finish? I know I was on the body. I don't think I had completed the body just yet. So I need to figure out what I'm doing with the body of the sweater and do the hem. And then I just have the sleeves. So it's not like I have a ton of stuff left to do. The hard part has been actually picking up and doing it. So since we're kind of in that lull between summer sock camp being over and starting to gear up for like Advent season, it is time to finish this sweater. I love making sweaters. There are some that I would like to cast on this before the end of the year and get them completed by the end of the year. But I have learned that a fingering weight sweater is not my most favorite thing to work on because it just takes so long to get through it. I'm more of like a DK worsted kind of girl. The yarn, I still have the tags in this bag. I don't know what else I have in this bag. But the yarn is Spun Right Round, and the colorways Eggplant, which is the purple, and Beer Goggles, which is that speckled. And I don't know when this was dyed, but this is on their classic sock, 100% superwash merino, 438 yards, 100 grams. Yeah. So later today I'll try it on, see where I'm at, and then come up with a game plan. Because I have put this off so long, I'm probably going to be very methodical in how I work on it, especially since this knit along with Woolberry is coming up. There's another one coming up I'm going to tell you about. So I may have to do very like 12 rows, 15 rows, 2 inches, however many rows that is, just so I can stay on track and not get distracted and get this done. So there is another knit along that's coming up. I'm checking my planner. It starts September 15th, so we should have an episode before it actually starts. But in case life happens again and I can't put an episode out, it is being hosted by Earth Tones Girl, and it is called the Falling Leaves Make Along or Knit Along. No, Sock Along, something like that. But the idea is that you knit socks with fall themed yarns and then extra kudos if it matches like a book. So I already have one yarn picked out for that. I do have another one that I would like to do, but I need to finish that sweater first. I need to do the Woolberry Marled Along first, and then the one I did pick out already for it. So as we get closer to that, I will show you what I've picked out. But get ready. If you have not seen the post for that, I'll link it down below so that you can check that out and join in as well. So what I'm reading and watching, I've been listening a lot to audiobooks lately. In the evenings, I usually like watch something and knit, and I have been choosing to listen to my books, which has been great. So I started the first book in the Wolves of Mercy Falls, Mercy Falls series. It's called Shiver. It's by Maggie Stiefvater. I started that 2 weeks ago. I am now on the 4th and last book. So the first one is Shiver, the second one is Linger, the third one is Forever, and then the fourth one, which was kind of like a add-on several years later, is called Sinner. And the whole idea is that there is a wolf pack in Mercy Falls, Minnesota, who are not actually wolves, but they're people who turn into wolves in the winter. And not super in line with like traditional werewolves storyline. These people, they change into wolves based on temperature. So if it gets really cold, then they turn into a wolf. And then when it warms up, they turn back into people. And then as time goes on, they stopped changing and they stay wolves. So it's, you know, this boy is the werewolf, this girl is not, and they had, you know, it's very teen books, teen literature, but I really enjoy it. I really like the narrators for this series, and it's the same set of narrators throughout all 4 books, which has been great because, you know, you just have that familiarity with the characters, and the narrators really do embody the characters and how they would say things. So that's been really fun. So if you love just a really easy read, check those out. They do have a little bit of, I wouldn't say adult content, and it's not like super explicit, but probably not for younger children, I will say that much. So check it out. And then what I'm watching, what am I watching? I'm kind of between shows. So I started Once Upon a Time on Disney Plus again. I've seen it so many times, but just it's something to have on. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't have a ton right now, which is fine, which is why I've been listening to my books more. All right, life updates. Like I said, my friend was not doing well, but she's doing better. Sabine, our puppy, she turned 8 months on Wednesday. We had a very busy morning. We had a walk this morning, and then she had to go to the vet. She's been having lots of eye drainage, but they don't see any damage in her eyes, so that's good. So it has just been like all the things in the morning, and now she's just like spent. So she's here taking a nap next to me. She was snoring a little earlier, which was super cute. other things going on. School is fully in session, so kids are enjoying being in school. Work is just moving along, so that's been great. Yeah, we're just kind of into the grind, which in a way I actually really enjoy because it gives our days structure and routine, and my children and I really thrive on that. So glad to finally be in our school routine and have all the school stuff going on, versus just the very, I don't know what's going on during the summer, which can be great, but also can be exhausting. So there's that. On top of that, I am struggling a bit with, like, I wouldn't say imposter syndrome, but just finding time to knit. Like I said, kids are going in all different directions with their after school activities. I'm working, so I am finding less time to knit than I had over the summer, which in a way is good because, like, one, it gives my wrists a chance to rest. There are just stuff that has to get done, like going to school and going to work and I have to feed my kids and I have to do the laundry and just like stuff that actually needs my time and attention. At the same time, it's a little like, oh, I used to be able to work on this project for so many hours in the day and now I only have this many hours now, or I didn't pick up a project until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So there is that adjustment of like, okay, we are in school mode, so there are some things that just take more priority right now. So there's that. But once we're like fully into school, well, we are fully into school. I think it's more of a me thing where I just need to change my mindset on what constitutes as like a good day for making, and just having to come to grips with some days I'm just not going to have the opportunity to make as much, and that's going to be okay. So that's all I've got for today. So make sure you like and subscribe. Of course, the likes helps us with the algorithm and all that. Subscribing gives you a notification every time we put out a new episode. That way you will know first when the new episode with the tutorial for tube socks comes out. And then, as always, I enjoy my time with all of you talking about knitting and crafting and life. I hope you had a good time just hanging out. I will see you guys next time.